You know, back when I was young, man, I had seen some cheese on the board. I was like, damn, that cheese look hella good. I gotta give me some of that shit, man. So I gets the nibbling on the cheese, and all of a sudden, smatter that. Guess what it was? Rat trap.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of AtYourEndStep. My name is Morgan, and I'm joined by Jordan.
Hey, what's up?
And Mike.
Number 20.
Number 20, welcome. So, we have a lot in store for you guys today. We have plenty of tournaments to talk about, and we have first-hand experience, of course, from the TCG 50K. We're going to talk about that last, but first we wanted to talk about GP Santiago and SCG LA. So, before we get started, do you guys want to throw anything else in?
I want to shout out local player Greg Price.
Yeah.
Who, top 4 of the Legacy champs at the Eternal Weekend, playing Mud, just dream crushing all the players with his Chalice of the Voids and whatnot. He's a real cool local guy, and he's been foiling out that deck for the better part of,
oh my goodness,
2 years or something.
Yeah,
like that.
he let me touch it at game day, and I was like,
don't take this out of context.
Yeah, don't quote that specific soundbite. But yeah, Greg let me like shuffle it, and I was like, am I allowed to shuffle this? And he was like, well, yeah, what do you think I'd do? I was like, Greg, I don't think you shuffle this. He's a super cool guy. Then he stomped me too at game day. So there's that.
But so congrats to him on his top 4. You know, getting beaten by Osip Leibniz, and then like Arlax wins that event. Like, you got to feel pretty good being in those names.
Oh yeah, most certainly. I mean, so and obviously, since we don't talk about Legacy or you know any other Eternal formats, you know, this is kind of the only time we'll be able to shout out someone for doing something well in Legacy, since we won't really talk about it. No offense to Legacy or Vintage players, we just don't have that bankroll. So let's go ahead and first we'll actually want to talk about GP Santiago, just because it's sort of the not necessarily the lesser of the tournament. It's just not as interesting from the deck list, except for the actual winning deck list. Piloted by Luis Scott, that's in quotes, Navas.
Get it?
Get it. He's trying to be cute. It's adorable. And he was piloting a red-black aggro list, featuring none other than Exava, Rakdos Blood Witch, as a 4 of, as well as various other red and or black creatures, including Zathra Necromancer, which I think is actually pretty cool, because most of the creatures in here are human. So you kind of have a little bit of an advantage if you do get a board sweep. It kind of is a kick in the nuts if they anger the gods you, but you know, what are you going to do? But this is kind of the most interesting list to really come out from this tournament. There have been like mono black lists, and of course, you know, mono red aggro lists that have been on Moto, but this is kind of the first prominent showing of it being in a big, you know, tournament. And Mike, you said that pretty much everything else was just, you know,
There's a lot of mono blue. There's a there's a mono red devotion list, very similar to. I guess it's not mono red. It's splashing white for Chain to the Rocks. Mm-hmm. And I think it's only Chain to the Rocks. And Boros Charms out of the board. And Assembles out of the board. Man, this thing is big. Deck is sort of similar to what they were doing in the Pro Tour or the LSV list, where they're just trying to power out things with their Nykthos.
Yeah. And this list has become fairly popular online as well.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a little interesting to see that in there as opposed to your normal, red-green list. There is additionally there's a red-green list.
Yeah, green-red. It's green-red monsters.
Yeah, playing Flesh and Blood, which is sweet.
Yeah.
And Witchstalker, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of a foil to Esper. And I think that's a lot of people's solution, you know, to Esper, which is the 3/3 can't be a hexproof creature that they play is it a black and blue spell, but it has to be on your
turn. Yes.
Yeah, so it's the
it's voice.
Yeah, the voice of resurgence clause, if you will. But I think you're right in Flesh and Blood being kind of a sweet little thing here. Just because now you can't actually play the flesh side of this. They're just pretty much playing blood.
For sure. And I'd like to see, like, I mean, you do have Keratin.
You do have Keratin. So that's what I was looking for after I said it.
You got that, like, every now and then where you could just, like, power out something out of a Xenagos with a Keratin, just be like, oh, by the way.
Right, pretty much. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting card. I know that Brad Nelson played this card in the Pro Tour and kind of pushed it with his Red Green Monsters list, and it was kind of sad not to see it continue forward. But it's good to see it going out. You're looking at something here.
Oh, sorry, I was just noticing that one of the top 8 lists, one of the mono blue lists, has 61 cards.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, 61 cards. The difference between 60 and 61 cards is very, very small. So.
Really? It's one card. I figured that out, Morgan.
Right, I understand that. But I don't know, like...
Mike, I think you might be thinking it's 2 cards.
So, I don't know why that's necessarily... Are you looking for, like, what the extra card is?
No, I mean, I just thought it was interesting that, you don't normally see that. You normally, you don't see that extra card. In drafts, sometimes you see it, but generally not here.
I guess they just couldn't find anything else there they wanted to cut. I mean, I don't blame them.
I mean, I still think like there's the old argument that that's just mathematically incorrect. I think that's probably still true in mono blue lists, but I don't know.
What, that 61 cards is incorrect?
Well, it's mathematically incorrect regardless of the deck choice. Like you'd have to be playing really powerful spells.
I mean, that's a whole other, like, can of worms, so to speak. I mean, then you get into the territory war. Then you should only be playing. Every deck in Modern should be playing 4 Gitaxian Probe by that logic, right? Because then mathematically you are cutting down to 56 of your best cards as opposed to 60.
Fair enough. I think though with Gitaxian Probe, there's downside to Gitaxian Probe.
Sure,
whereas
I'm just saying it was an argument that was had
during
its time in Standard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
you probably make the cut and just try to draw the better cards. But I mean, I've been guilty of doing it in drafts generally, where you're just like, you know what, I don't want to cut these things.
No, yeah, I think draft's a little different, where your game plan hinges so much on singletons.
Right.
Whereas, like in a constructed format, I feel like he could have figured out, like, oh, maybe 3 Bidens is too much, or maybe, oh, I really just need 3 Thosses.
You and Morgan are just full of all the great advice. Did you know that 61 and 60 is a very small difference? And did you know that draft hinges a lot on singletons?
No, I think what I said was a little more helpful than Morgan's. Like, I was contributing, the analogy's not exactly fair.
In all honesty,
they both suck.
But most people have your opinion, though, in that 61 cards makes such a huge difference that you shouldn't play 61 cards. But in actuality, it is a small mathematical difference between 60 and 61.
I mean, yeah, but I mean...
that statement is so unnecessary.
But you would think that it is. But it's not. Because people make a huge deal, like you did, about people playing 61 cards.
It was intriguing to me. I mean, the logic dictates that you should play the minimum amount of cards possible because you want your deck, if it's doing something powerful, to do the exact same powerful thing every single game.
Correct.
The easiest way to do that is to reduce the amount of extraneous things within it. So it does, that is why people stick to that so much. I'm still making fun of you more for the fact that you had to let me know that 1 is more than 0, which, spoiler alert, I'm sorry at home if you haven't seen the movie, 1 is greater than 0. But and is not that big of a difference, but it's still a difference.
Correct.
But anyways,
and I think in a game of Max Mini and like Magic Gathering is like you want to be played in the 60. Now, I mean, Vilmar, I hope I'm not butchering his name, but Vilmar, I'm sure, I mean, like, he top 8 at GP. I'm sure he knew what he was doing. I'm sure everything was as it should be. I'm just curious to his reasoning behind it. I'm not trying to say he was, like, dumb or whatever.
Maybe he was doing it just to troll people. Like, he was just pile shuffling and just, like, consistently kept getting an extra one. Judge? Oh, wait, no. I have 61 cards on my list. Gotcha.
Maybe. Anyway. We'll move off of this topic because I'm sure it's very intriguing for everyone involved. But yeah, so that's kind of GP Santiago in a nutshell. I mean,
there's an Esper list that's top 8'd.
Ooh.
It's still playing Elspeth's.
Ooh.
I'm not saying it. I'm just letting you know.
No, yeah, no.
I'm shitting on you.
Well, no. Okay, honestly, the Elspeth discussion, it's bad in a mono black meta. In the meta that developed after Mono Black won a tournament, it got better. Like when I played Morgan, I played Elspeth and then he Heroes Downfall it. And I was like, well, hey, guess who was right on the podcast, buddy, as I put my Elspeth in the...
yeah, but I mean, again, did you play your Elspeth on turn 6 against an opponent that has Heroes Downfall?
I think I played on like turn 8 or something like that.
Okay, but did you leave counterspell protection?
Yeah, negate.
Then what was the issue?
I didn't have negate.
Okay.
Well, that was the problem.
Elspeth actually is not that terrible against mono black. As long as you have protection. Elspeth's really terrible against mono blue, which is hilarious, seeing as there's like 6 mono or 5 mono blue lists in this top 8.
Right.
But hey,
I mean,
That's why I
Elspeth, but I mean, like, Elspeth is just another win condition. You hope that it'll last, but I think the problem, like, a lot of the problem with Esper is that maybe their win conditions aren't as resilient as they think. Like, a lot of people hinge on Blood Baron being...
This one is playing 4 Blood Barons on the board.
But, I mean, like, I understand that Blood Baron is good, but still Mono Black has game against Blood Baron. They have Devour Fleshes, they have Life-Bane Zombies, they have Thoughtseize, they have ways to get rid of it. And they also have Erebos, which kind of also negates it because they can't gain life from it.
See,
so
I hate these kind of discussions where people are like, well, yeah, you have these cards, but here's the cards that directly counter it. Like, yeah, like decks have things that counter things. That's why like one deck doesn't just straight up win.
But in Esper, in control decks, your win conditions need to be able to be resilient. And when you say like, oh, I have this card that's going to win me these matches, and they aren't resilient against the cards that deck that you're hedging for has, then is that the win condition you want against that deck?
Well, I think in like we just kind of led to a bit that if I'm playing spells on curve, like I'm probably not doing it right. Like for example, against you when I dropped a spell without a way to protect my win condition.
Sure.
And then, by the way,
it's like casting Aetherling on turn 6.
Right, precisely. And I also would like to know that you are the king of helpful information tonight, where you want your win conditions to stick around. So,
Rock smashes scissors.
wait.
Scissors cuts paper.
Wait, what beats paper? Or what beats paper?
I understand.
Scissors. Oh, you just I messed up the joke. God damn it!
I can just leave if you guys want me to and take.
Wait,
the recording equipment with me if you'd like.
Morgan, what
You
beats?
don't play with my toys anymore. I'm going home.
I do have one question for the voice of AtYourEndStep. What beats rock?
Fuck you. That's what beats rock.
Blood Baron Viscopa beats Rock. Get it? Because it's the black-green.
Yeah.
Moving on.
The look on Mike's face, everybody, by the way, was priceless.
He really enjoyed that comment.
I was beaming.
I know. It's true.
So, Star City?
Yeah, so move on to Star City. Now, Star City, they had some interesting things kind of show up in the top 8, I think. So we do see Naya Control kind of come back in 8th place. So that's kind of interesting, that weekend deck is actually, maybe lasting 2 weekends instead. We also do have some mono blue devotion, mono red aggro, green white and Esper also show up again. The red white devotion list that I think is going to be similar to the list that we see in GP Santiago. Very, very similar. Some kind of new lists that people talked about in the beginning of their standard kind of showing up. So we have Dega midrange or black red white midrange shows up at 5th place. Now, this is kind of a list that I've always looked at and admired and really wanted it to work, but have never seen any really good results except for, moto results. And, that metagame doesn't necessarily translate into real life all the time. But we do see it show up here. It's got some, interesting things. I've heard many people liken this to the old standard Jun lists. And the way that it operates in its mid-ranginess, if you will.
It's mid-ranginess.
Mid-ranginess.
It's just the numbers in this deck just seem so strange.
Right, that has always gotten me too with these kind of lists, because the numbers always look weird. Like you have 2 Desecration Demons, and you're cutting. It looks like this list is cutting 2 Desecration Demons for Pack Rat. And that's what they're doing, and that just seems really, really
2
weird.
2 Demons, 2 Pack Rats, 2 Obzat, 2 Elspeth, 2 Dreadboard, 2
Right.
Thoughtseize, 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Whip of Erebos, 2 Assembled of the Legion. I'm going to tell you right now, the deck I've been running, this is literally the only deck that I can't beat consistently. I just can't do it. But it just does seem like a lot of this deck, like Jun kind of was anyways, it's just like, let's jam all these good cards in there. I don't know what numbers we should have, so let's go with half.
Right, exactly. And I think it would probably fall into the same thing that Jen always fell into, is like, you got to draw the right half of your deck,
right.
depending on your matchup. Like, you could be up against Control and just be like, oh, I guess I'm just going to draw my Pack Rats and Boris Reckoners, and you guys can just Wrath away. And then, like, you're going to go up against Aggro and be like, oh, look at all these expensive spells. Thanks, Elspeth.
I mean, I do like you get all 8 Scrylands.
Yes.
That you can here. I mean, the deck gets to play a lot of really powerful spells. It does have like cute interactions like Whip and Obsidat. Like I said, this deck has a lot of power. It also, I mean, you do lose out on the ability to draw a million cards like the Mono Black deck has. So you just like you just run out of gas.
Yeah, and like that's kind of the unfortunate thing with it. But I mean, it's interesting that it shows up here, and like
sure.
I'm
and
glad
there are no dragons in it, which is really surprising.
That is really surprising as well, because a lot of these lists online have dragons. So
Right.
usually they run like Boris Reckoners, dragons, and then Desecration Demons, just to have like that's their creature package, and then everything else is all spells.
Oops,
Of some persuasion. So.
all spells.
Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yet,
So yeah,
and then the other thing that kind of shows up in the actually winning list is we finally have White Red Weenie, winning an open, and this is a list that first showed up, pretty early on in it was in the first open.
yeah,
It was ninth
it's what
place.
you were on before.
Right, exactly. It was Ross Miriam's list, and I talked to Ross about this list, and I tried it, and I didn't have very much success with it.
I didn't like it.
It's mainly like as for me, I felt that it wasn't the list per se, but maybe it wasn't that I couldn't play aggro. Now this list, piloted by Ben Lundquist, is a little bit different than the list that Ross Miriam first showed up with. First thing to note is that it is actually Planeswalker heavy. There's 3 Ajani's in here. And most of the time in the list, you would see like 2 Ajani's in the sideboard and not 3 Ajani's main deck, which is a pretty heavy commitment. But I think that's there just because it's. You want it for things like the control decks like Esper, and you want it for like mono black, just because it kind of gives you reach and a way around things typically, and also has incremental advantages as well. And then the interesting things that we have is main deck frontline medic, which is not something that we saw in the original list. 2 Azorius Arrestor, which is the 2/1 for 1 and a white.
I like that card a lot.
That comes in and detains a guy, which is pretty sweet. And a lot of people, because following this list online, a lot of people have talked about this card being a possible card over Imposing Sovereign, which is typically in the list. We don't find any Imposing Sovereigns here. We also see that Banisher Priests are actually not in the main anymore, which they typically were. There were 4 in the main, and they've actually shifted over to the side. And only 1 Spear of Heliod. Well, obviously, Spear of Heliod is kind of bad when you draw multiples of it, and there is there probably had to be a concession just because they wanted more Johnnies in the 3-drop slot. So, I mean, it's very interesting, and I actually have this deck built online. I still have all the other cards for the older way that it was built, so I kind of have both versions available to me. The older version, I actually took another shot at it again and piloted it through like an 8-4 and went 3-0, so that felt pretty good. And I do think this deck has a lot of power against the current meta, and I don't know how long that this strategy will be viable, because I tried playing this deck last night, and then just a 2-man, and I came against the black-white mid-range deck, which seems like a nightmare. Just a nightmare. Like, because mono black, sometimes you can just get by them with the creatures they have, but that black-white mid-range list, I mean, it's kind of mid-range typically foils aggro strategies anyway. So it was definitely a rough matchup. I also didn't play as well as I should have. I'm not as familiar with Moto as I should be, and may have sacrificed the wrong Johnny. It happened, and I'm not too proud of it, but I'll admit it. Because I haven't played Moto since they changed the rules, so I wasn't paying attention to what it told me to click on, so I thought it was asking me which one I wanted to keep, and not which one I wanted to sacrifice for some reason. I don't know. I don't understand Moto sometimes. I'm going to get better at it. And so that's kind of where we're at. I know that Cedric Phillips actually built to this list and piloted on his stream tonight, and it was a lot of fun. He was pissing a lot of people off, which I found hilarious, because people were just like, "Oh, great hand, lucky draws." It's like, I'm playing a white weenie deck. Like, that's what it's designed to kill you fast, and that's what it is.
Quick aside, saw a picture on Facebook today of Lauren Nolan.
Uh-huh.
Okay, a guy who's gotten mad at him on Moto and essentially said like, "Yo, way to win your first match, kid." And he's like, "Well, this is round 2, so I've won 1 more match."
That's awesome.
How condescending do you have to
You
be?
said
Oh, good match winning, kid. Yes.
You see that's Lauren
Thanks,
Nolan?
Mean Joe. Yes.
I want to look at that.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So sorry, I know it's totally random, but I saw that and I had a good laugh about it.
Yeah, I know. I imagine. So, I mean, hopefully this list can have some legs. I'm still struggling to find something I want to play in Standard, so who knows if this is it or not. I kind of want to play aggro. I kind of just want to be like, whatever, I don't care. And hopefully I'll get better at it, and maybe it won't be so bad when I play it online. And do you guys want to talk anything about the GP or the Star City games in LA before we kind of move into the 50K? Because the 50K is going to be the bulk of our podcast. We were all there. We all had stories and experiences. Some good, some bad, but it is what it is.
Mostly bad.
Well, 2/3 bad.
2/3.
No, I'm good.
Round 5 was great.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll move over here. First, we'll kind of just talk about the top 8 of the tournament and not necessarily get into our own personal stories. And so we see that the winner and overall champion of the TCG 50K was none other than Josh McClain.
The AtYourEndStep Josh McClain.
Yeah, so this is really awkward because we were almost recorded a podcast with him. Well, we did. We talked to him, and obviously, you guys already know the story. The recording didn't turn out.
We hung out with
well.
Josh McClain for an hour.
Basically, that's what happened. And he's a real cool dude. And it was really funny because, Mike, didn't he tell you that he hopes that he does something else to warrant being back on the podcast?
So I played him when I was still sitting undefeated, which was really nice, going into Modern, and got absolutely crushed, outplayed. Like, I thought game 2...
So you're saying that the GP champion playing his
funny,
GP winning list outplayed you.
Oh, I was trying to set this up, though, because it was so funny, because he's such a nice guy in general. Like, he's like game 2, like, I thought I was ahead, and then, like, within 2 turns, I was like, oh. Like, I'm like, you had your pod set up, like, 3 or 4 turns ahead. And then and then he's like, well, hopefully I do something good enough again to deserve getting back on the podcast. So
well, congratulations.
Like, well.
Hopefully we'll have him back on. I'm definitely hoping that he'll definitely accept our offer. I know that I think we all talked to him. I think Jordan may not have talked to him, but I know Mike and I definitely.
Oh, I did at the bar, actually.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we all talked to him.
Yeah.
He's all cool with us, and hopefully we'll have him back on so he can, definitely tell us about his experience, or just have him back on as a guest and not necessarily talk about anything in particular, except for whatever we're talking about that week. Anyway, so the top 8 of this was a split format, but the top 8 was played out with standard. And Josh was playing, the stock mono blue devotion list that we've come to know and love. Was he playing anything spicy in his list?
I have this open, but we'll talk about this a little more. But the TCG Player list just set up so well.
We'll definitely discuss that
LOL,
later.
JK.
He was playing, and a lot of players were actually playing this. He was playing a main deck domestication. Mm-hmm. So that nice rarity shifted card that got released in M14, good old uncommon rare. That's probably just to help with I wonder what that is there.
I mean, it takes something like really good.
Force Reckoner.
It's good in Force. I think honestly too, it's probably insane in the main or in the mirror. So like,
that's
like,
true. It's probably just
if you have a Thassa and they have a Thassa, then you can domestication to turn on your Thassa and turn theirs off on the same turn, which is actually just like nutty. But it's good against any of the creature decks, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's probably what it's there for. I think you hit the nail on the head with the mirror match. I think that actually is a huge taking someone's Nightville Spectre
is also pretty insane, right? It's power less than 4 or
at the beginning of your upkeep if it's 4 or greater you sack it.
Oh god! So you take their Thassa, right?
At the beginning of your end step, excuse me.
Never mind. I'm living in Magic Christmas Land. It doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, you can take their creature, you can turn off theirs. No, I just looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It probably helps a lot up there. But it's also an enchantment. Like a lot of the lists were running Claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Which taps down a creature but has 2 blue in its casting cost. So a lot of these things are just there also because they have utility and add to devotion.
Right.
That's a good point. That's fair.
So definitely, keep your eye on that. I think that's definitely, either things like Claustrophobia or Domestication are going to start showing up in these lists. Just to
Curse of the Swine in the sideboard.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of
Pinky.
Brother Josh with the spice.
Yeah, and then
with the spice.
Yeah, one of Curse of the Swine on the side, and everything else kind of looks pretty par for the course. I know a lot of both Mono Blue and Esper lists are also coming back to playing Jace Memory Adept as a possible kill condition, which I think is really good, and I think that having another Planeswalker kill condition, potentially even over something like a Blood Baron, in Esper specifically, might be the way to go. I know that obviously there is a heavy Heroes downfall, metagame right now, but there was only 4 of those, so
right. No, I mean I like Big Jace a lot.
I definitely, because I know that you played that in your sideboard.
I played 2.
Esper.
Yeah, it's just a finisher. Like, especially if you can like live the dream and get both in your hand. Your opponent's like, fine, whatever. I'll take 10 heroes. I'll mill 10 heroes down. You're like, gotcha, bitch. And like a card that's great tech for the Esper matchup that I saw. Gary Zagopoulos. I'm going to mess up his last name, but he's a player out of where are they from? Mansfield. Plays in the Saturday stuff at Comic Con a lot. He was playing a 1 of Elixir of Immortality, and he said in his testing, he goes, the Esper matchup literally goes down to who mills someone first, if both people know how to play it properly. Because both people are going to counter each other's Aetherlings, and you're going to just be on the like, well, I hope I mill you first. And he got to live that dream where it's like Elixir of Immortality, and his opponent's like jaw just dropped. He's like, I assume you have no responses, so I'll activate Elixir Immortality. And shuffles like 35 cards into his library again.
Right.
And he's like, and his opponent's just like, yeah, we're done here. So I think I'm going to try that out.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I've heard of as being a possible solution to that mirror match. Just because, like, it eventually does come down to that. So,
yeah, no, most mirrors come down to that.
So, like, like your other win conditions, even something like Aetherling, if they nab it with, like, a Thoughtseize, like, you're just going to be like, well, I'm just going to play this game, and then I get to pull all my cards back in order, and you don't. So,
which is another interesting line. In games 2 and 3, it almost feels incorrect to keep an open hand with Aetherling. Because like of turn the 1 Thoughtseize being such a thing, and you're like, well, here you go.
There you go.
And like, oh, I hope I draw another way to win. So, yeah, that's. I was really intrigued by the Elixir of Immortality, and it blew me away.
I mean, it used to be a big game when you were the entire mirror match was drown yards.
Yeah,
right.
Yard,
Yeah.
Mill for 3, mill for 3.
Mill for 3.
No, not to go off a little bit of a tangent, but I know that a lot of Esper lists have started to accept Ashiok back into their main decks. Because I saw that in the 50K.
Yeah.
I saw me get beaten to death pretty much by Ashioks against this Esper list, just because it felt like it was something I needed to deal with against. I was playing Black Green Devotion. And it just felt like it was a card that I needed to interact with and deal with, or it was just going to take over the game, it felt.
Yeah.
Because they get to do things like, play my...
Desecration Demon.
Oh, yeah, they can just snap stuff like Desecration Demon or, Nightbill Spectre.
Sure.
And, I just can't have that. What do you guys think about that card?
I'm still underimpressed. Like, I think that, like you said, it can just take over a game, but... so can anything. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, well, not anything.
Well,
you can't just say like anything can take over the game.
No, like, I guess I'm not establishing a good argument, but yeah, like I'm underwhelmed. I think maybe it's good in your matchup. It's not very good in the mirror. It's not going to live long enough in red green. I mean, in the mirror, like I hope to hit an Aetherling and get lucky. That's really the game, I guess. Against Jews, the only thing that's really good for, and I would just probably rather play Nightbill Spectators.
I guess. I
don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I think people will still keep it in the wrong matchups, and that's why when you say underperforms, it's probably because most people don't keep it in correctly. But it's a fine card.
Yeah.
I mean, like, take a look at it this way. Like, if you're gonna go into like if you're playing an Esper mirror match, you're gonna go into like the J sideboard plan. Then, I mean, Ashiok just helps get you there.
Well,
sure.
I think one thing Ashiok does do, like you're talking about, like, well, how do you protect your Elspeth from a hero's downfall? Well, you present something else that they have to cast Hero's Downfall.
Right.
Kind of like what Jace does. So if they don't have a way to answer it immediately, then they have to use a Hero's Downfall on that, and you're like, oh, cool, Elspeth, and then they're down. So there's that logic to it. It's a fine card. It does attack from a different angle, which the Esper decks are not a linear strategy. You know what I mean? So they want different ways to win the game, and Ashiok is fine. I don't. The list that had 4 Ashioks from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right, but I'd rather have access to some than none. Probably.
I don't know about main board. I think the main board's probably a mistake in my opinion.
It's probably true.
I've been testing it out of the board, and more often than not, like in most matchups, I go, no, I'm not going to put that card in. Like you said, I think it's incorrect to slot it in more often than not.
Right.
And I think there's more universal cards to play.
Sure.
The mistake I made this weekend was I played a grinder on Friday, like a 6-round grinder. Played the mirror 4 times. Right, so I took out all these cards for certain matchups, like it would have been good in the red green. Put in Gains Phase and stuff like that. Didn't play Esper once. It was the nut. It was like, well, you guys are cute, and I'm glad I looked through cards for you. Back in the box, but so I don't know where the meta's at right now, but
I mean the meta really is. I mean, is going to be your fast red decks, your control Esper decks, your...
Well, no, I know what the meta is. I know
Right.
what card. I know what decks are played. Maybe it's just more the meta is wide open, and that like I just happen to play against all the Esper people in the world. Out of this 27-man event that I played in, I think if we looked and said like 15 were playing Esper, and then 12 was a smattering between mono black and red green devotion.
Right.
So it was just like, oh my god, like this is a disaster.
Right, but I mean, something like the red green devotion list, I feel like you probably have a pretty good game against.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fun to play.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, it's hard for them to recover from that.
No, yeah, it's just definitely weird to play all Esper one day. It's to make your sideboard changes like you're supposed to do. Like I felt like I was doing something right, and then go, oh, I was fucking terrible. So.
Yeah, I most certainly. I can definitely understand that. Now, another list that kind of shows up that's interesting in this top 8, and just to be fair, something that is weird in this top 8 is that, we're talking about top 8 lists, and in a split format, that's not necessarily always representative of what is actually like the best deck or the most winningest deck necessarily.
I mean, in a split format too. I mean, you're talking about like, you could top 8 based off your modern, and then top 8 like, look at my standard deck, and be like, well, that's not.
That's garbage, right?
Right. But something that is interesting that shows up in standard is a black-white aggro list. So this list actually looks very similar to the red-white aggro list. It is basically the same exact list, roughly, except instead of splashing for Boros Charm, you're splashing for Orzhov Charm, which is interesting. You have your Galdus Shrines, your Temples of Silence. Only playing 23 lands, so only 3 Mutavault, 11 Plains, and 1 Orzhov Guildgate, which is kind of awkward. And then in the sideboard, the things that you get with the Black Splash is Sync Collector,
which is good.
Which is a pretty good game against the control decks, the blacklist, stuff like that. I mean, like, I was looking at Orzhov Charm and I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. It still is kind of Wrath Protection. You can bounce your own guy.
Well, I mean, you also like you
can kill a guy. That's kind of the huge thing,
right?
Too.
You also have a number of creatures you can return.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
I will say that it's really awkward against like Anger the Gods because they're exiled, and you're like, oh, I wish I could bring this back to play.
But I mean, like Anger the Gods, you always have Brave. Like that's your answer. So hopefully your creatures aren't dying from that; they're just dying from combat or what have you. And you can be like, well, I'll get my. I mean, you'd be living the dream if you're going to get your Soldier of the Pantheon back. That's your best one drop. Sometimes you get that Judge's Familiar and kind of get you. But I mean, as you look as the white red list goes, the way that it's grown is it doesn't even play Judge's Familiar. It goes to a way more aggressive slant with the 1/1 battalion guy, Boros Elite.
Right.
So. I just thought it was interesting that I've always kind of thought about the black splash to the red splash. I still like the white red list a little bit more. And then the rounding out is this rounding out top 8. There were 4 mono blue devotion lists, 1 red green devotion list, 1 Esper control list, 1 Orzhov aggro list, and then 1 mono black aggro. Now this is that list that I was talking about. That was showing up online a lot.
Yeah.
Just has Downfalls, Thought Seizes, and Ultimate Price says it spells 24 land, 4 Mutavault, 20 Swamp, and then things like Desecration Demon, Night Veil Spectre, Pack Rat, Rakdos Calcular, Thrill Kill Assassin, and Tormented Hero. So I think that this list is pretty interesting as well. Just for the sheer fact that you have things like Thrill Kill Assassin.
Thrill Kill Assassin's sweet because it's a 2/3.
Yeah,
so
it's a 2/3
as well, and Death touches them out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, are you going to block my 2/3 with your 6/6 demon? I don't think so. So you're going to take 2, and like it just gets through things that people don't want to have to deal with. So that's kind of nice. And you still play like a big game with Desecration Demons, and you can still like just win games randomly with Pack Rat, which is always kind of fun. But I do like this list. I don't know how much it will still show up, just because I think mono red is faster, and I think if you want to play an aggro list, then you should probably look towards Ben Lundquist's list, or the list that Patrick Sullivan suggested that Dave Nolan actually played in the standard portion of the 50K and did very, very well with. But it's definitely an interesting list, and I think something that a lot of people might underestimate. And again, it does show up online, so people are still playing this list, tweaking it. So I mean that's pretty much the top 8. Speaking of Dave, he did show up in the top 16.
Yeah.
So he did a really good job. Mike also day 2'd, which is pretty awesome. Now the interesting thing about the TCG 50K, it was very small.
It was tiny.
It was
Terrible.
very, very, very tiny.
Tiny. Sorry, tiny, not terrible. Well, that's it.
Wrong T.
It was
Wrong
terrible.
T.
It was terrible.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, so it was very tiny. So anyone that day 2'd instantly got $200. Instantly.
It was like you passed go.
No, if you day 2'd, you pass go, you got $200.
No, they sent a check that I'll see in like 3 weeks.
Okay,
so
fine.
Delayed go.
I understand that, but like,
No, I know what you're saying.
The banker's taking a piss, and like,
if you could have literally not won a match when you day 2'd, and still they would have given you $200. So very, very tiny. Very, very.
all you had to do is not show up.
Yeah, if you didn't show up, if you left earlier or showed up, you literally might as well grab $200 and just lit it on fire and throw it out the window. Like, fuck this. I don't need
They'd
this.
be down $400.
Shh. $200 that someone gave them.
So you're still down $400. I don't think receiving money and then burning that money negates you of law. You would be a terrible entrepreneur. If we ever try to monetize this, you are not in charge of that project.
Fair enough. I wouldn't be good at it.
It's not happening, by the way. You don't have to pay for this.
Yeah, who would pay for this?
We'll pay you to listen to this.
That would probably be the case. So yeah,
Take a penny, leave a penny jar.
So yeah, if you day 2'd, first of all, if you didn't go and you could have, and you're a decent Magic player, you probably missed out on $200. Let's be fair. But yeah, top 64 was the cut, so it wasn't even like X2 because that's what they started out.
It started as X2. I mean, I drew my last round awkwardly, purposefully, but drew so X2 won to get into day 2.
Right. So even X3's made it, but it was either X2 or top 64, whichever is greater. So now. What do you guys think? So we'll kind of dive into our actual personal experiences with this. Mine's not terribly interesting. I didn't play very well. I won a modern match with my Grizzle Brand Reanimator list, and that was like the highlight of my day. And I was like, I had fun playing modern. It can't happen. So that was definitely a lot of fun. We'll start with Jordan though.
Yeah. It was fine. I didn't make day 2, and I was pretty bummed about that, actually. I think I played a little poor in Standard against Naya Control. I was playing Esper. I played against Naya Control, and I think I misplayed a couple times because I had actually never played a deck that was real, which was a really big mistake on my part. Round 5, I got the pleasure of playing Morgan. I got the pleasure of crushing Morgan 2-0.
Hey, high five for those who crushed Morgan in a big event.
High five.
All right.
All right.
Can I do this? Can I do one of these? Can I high five?
Yeah. No, it was fun. Morgan actually had 2 legendary artifacts on the table at the same time. Tried to scum me out of a game. So he got offended when I tried to call a judge. I don't know.
No, you didn't call it. Nor did you try to call it.
Well, I looked like I was going to. You actually had a look on your face because I looked away from the table.
Yes. If he did call a judge, I would have been a little bit offended that he would call a judge on a friend in a tournament that literally. At that point in time, like, I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to do anything. So if he called a judge, I would have been like, what the fuck?
I think it was elimination round 2, though. So I felt like kind of important. But
I guess.
It was like the X2s. But anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, no. I wanted to speak to our listeners and say that due to a work schedule change, I haven't been able to play Magic very much. So I'm real rusty and real shitty. So mistakes were made.
To be fair, this change is very similar to the change that happens to the deck when you go from 60 to 61 cards.
Fair enough.
Did you know playing less Magic makes you a worse player? The more you know with AtYourEndStep.
Oh, Morgan, I'm so sorry.
Anyway, so that was kind of my day. I played red green Tron, in Modern. Nothing really too eventful. I watched the top 8 coverage on Sunday from home. I don't really have stories per se, other than like I was just pretty disappointed with my results.
Yeah, we definitely. Me speaking for Jordan and I, we definitely should have came back on that second day and played. And they had a 5K that was actually going on, and apparently there were around 60-something people there.
Yeah,
So it was over 100. It ended up being over 100.
Oh, was it?
Oh,
over
really?
100?
But it was an 8-round event that was almost done by the time top 8 was going on. So
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
So still, probably relatively an easy time to play in. But I've been pretty disheartened with my experience playing, just because I still just haven't found something that I really enjoy playing in Standard. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because I'm not spending enough time with the deck. But everything that I play just did not feel like I was having fun like I had it last Standard. So it's kind of hard just because it's hard for me to be like, oh, I'm going to play this deck and then not play it because I just don't have. There's no opportune time to play. And that's why I've been, hopefully leaning towards playing more Moto. And by the end of this week, I should know what my next schedule is. So depending on what that is, I might be investing more into Moto and less into paper. So that's kind of where it is right now. Because obviously playing in live tournaments and not playing as much as even just going to F&M, it definitely hurts. And I didn't think it would hurt as much as it did, but a lot of it has to do with me not being able to play, and a lot of it has to do with me not liking what I'm playing. I think you perform a lot better when you are playing something that you actually enjoy, going through the minutia of playing. When I'm just playing Black Green Devotion, I'm going, I really don't give a shit anymore. I just don't give a shit what I draw off the top.
Same
I don't
with
give a
women.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious though, because in last Standard you played the Rock,
Right.
so what? Did you not enjoy that?
But no, I love playing that deck. But
So
it was
what's-
different cards. I get to play things like Liliana the Veil, which is an awesome fucking card.
Okay.
I get to play things like Mutavault, which is awesome. I liked playing that deck, and I get to play with good mana bases and things of that nature. I liked playing that deck because I liked playing the cards. In the
Okay,
deck.
no, I was just asking.
Yeah, the Black Green Devotion deck, those cards are fine, but they don't feel necessarily as powerful as the cards that I was playing with. And I just think that I think I need to branch out into something different, just because I don't think mid range is good right now. Unless I'm playing. Actually, I do have something that I have expressed to Mike. I actually really want to play his list, but I can't because he's borrowing my Stormwrath Dragons to play his list. So it's a bit of an issue. So I'd like to play that list, but I'm not buying 2 more goddamn Stormwrath Dragons. I don't need 6.
I'll get some. Don't
No,
worry.
it's okay. When's the next time I'm really going to play in a tournament? Come on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Never.
No, that's
PTQ.
not true. I'm going to the PTQ, but it's sealed, so who cares?
I'm looking forward to that.
I know it should be exciting and fun, but so my experience was disappointing. So for kind of Modern, I didn't play the last round of Modern or the last 2 rounds of Modern just because I just didn't want to play Magic anymore. It was
hung out
great.
with Morgan we hung out for 2 hours.
I know we played last round. Jordan played. You played what? I think an extra round of Modern more than I played, or
No,
did you play
I played
rounds?
2 rounds because it was
Okay.
the elimination rounds.
yeah. So I only played 2 rounds. I won against Affinity and lost against Affinity because one of the Affinity players played Rest in Peace, and I was like, well. Burp, 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 derp.
I just like the way you said that a lot.
But I really like my deck list, and in honesty, one change that I actually was looking on some forums that people have suggested making is taking out the one of a Burial Rites and putting in Whip of Erebos, which seems real spicy with things like Borborygmos and Grizzlebrand. So I definitely want to try that. I don't know when the next time I'm going to be playing Modern is, but when I do, I want to try that. It's going to be fun. So I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know where you're going with that.
Anyway, so we sat out for the rest of Modern, but we did get to see an interesting matchup between who was it? Dave Nolan and it was Mike.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
Mike.
Mike.
See, I like how you set that up. Usually when you try to set up this cliffhanger, it's god awful. But that was a good one.
Oh, well,
that
thank
was,
you.
yeah, no problem.
I appreciate that.
I like that one.
Yeah, I lost that matchup. That was bad. That was
Did
bad
you?
last week.
It was to be fair, you were playing Junk by David Ochoa.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry,
as-
Ochoa. That deck sucks.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
and Dave was on Affinity.
Yeah.
And that's a bad matchup.
It's a great matchup, but he drew extraordinarily well.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, by the end of that day and going into day 2, my back was just killing me so much for just carrying this entire damn podcast and events. Jesus, guys.
Oh wow!
Yo,
there's this guy.
We gotta thank Mike.
Tell me I'm wrong.
He's
Silence.
not wrong.
Silence.
I'm not disagreeing with him like that. He lends credence to this podcast. That one person on this podcast you should probably listen to. It's Mike. You should listen to Mike.
Between the three of us, we've won about $200 a piece in the past 2 weeks.
Or between the one of me, I've earned $700.
Correct.
Though Dave earned $1,000 this last weekend, so
That's true. Wasn't it? No, wasn't it 2?
No, it was $1,000.
Oh, was it just
Top
one?
16 is 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tom.
I guess I still can't even be sad for him. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Dave, you only won 1,000 here, buddy.
Oh, that's too bad.
No, my day started really well. I exoed standard. Granted, that was 2 buys, but I mean,
It's still pretty good.
Played Josh McClain round 6, soundly defeated. It was frustrating. Game 1, it was land screwed. Like I had 2 mana, never drew the 3rd one, and had 3 Lilianas in hand. I'm just like, well, it'd be cool to cast this. But they're not very good against that deck anyway. So you sack something and it comes back. So he in game 2, I really thought it was ahead, and it got bad quick. So he had the right mix of pod targets and cards that he had drawn in his hand as well. So that was over quick. I didn't feel bad about that though. Like he's definitely, especially a modern, like much better player than myself.
Oh yeah. No offense.
But it did start a downward trend for me in modern. I did, the junk list, it was all right. Definitely had some very not stellar draws.
Yeah.
I managed to beat Blue White Red Control the next round. Lost to Dave, and then going into the last round, I was terrified I was going to make day 2 at X2, and wasn't able to see my standings. So I, got paired against someone. The guy was really nice. We talked about if we could split. We didn't know. He's like, well, let's play for now. We'll talk about it through the match. Game 1, he's on Affinity, and I was very tilted by the match with Dave. Like I was just crushed, and I'm like, oh god, here we go again. Get crushed game 1. And of course, now at this point, like we're not really talking draw anymore, and proceed to win a pretty close game 2. I was able to blow him out on a pretty key turn where he blocked with an Edge Champion and was able to kill his other threat that he attacked with that turn with an Abrupt Decay to make the Edge Champion no longer have
Protection from all colors.
Right, but Metalcraft is the
Metalcraft.
which stops him protection. So afterwards he's like, well, do you want to just split? And I'm like, yes. Like my opponent is saying that we should split. I'm down. He's on the play for game 3. So we sign the slip. We as a split, and then we as a draw, I should say. And we play the 3rd game. I draw a hand that had 6 lands and a Creeping Corrosion and kept it and blew him out. Didn't matter. We drew in. We sort of sat there with crossed fingers, and we were like 54th and 55th or something like that. So came back the next day. Started off with a really frustrating, literally the only loss I've had with my current standard deck to Esper in Constructed since I built the damn thing. A lot of mulligans, so it was rough. Won my next round, and then didn't win another round until my last opponent didn't show up. So
Didn't show up.
Yeah, didn't show up. So
I would have liked that $200.
So would you have 2 and 3 then on the day, including the buy,
2-3 on,
or including the walkover? I guess.
2-3 on the day. So I ended up my overall record in the event was 8-5-1,
and you made $200.
and that's a $200 winning record.
Woo!
There.
TCG Championship.
No, I felt really bad. She didn't show. I know it was her name was Chelsea, I think, if I remember correctly. I know because the guy came up and was like, "Oh, is this my table?" And I'm like, "Are you Chelsea?" And he's like, "No." But I was like, I waited purposely for like 5 minutes, and like I was trying not to get the attention of a judge because I was terrified. Like I wanted her to get back in time to get her money. Now, luckily, she was there to start the day, meaning they had her tax form because we had to fill out the tax form to begin the day. So I talked to the judge. She said I wasn't going to drop her. Hopefully, they'll still send her the check.
Yeah.
But like I had another guy come up and he was like, "Well, she shouldn't lose her money. Let me just sign that for you." And I'm like, "No, go away." Like I'm, as much as I want to make sure she got her prize, I'm not going to have someone forge a slip, and I would encourage you never to let anybody do that.
Yeah.
Because then you could lose your money, and it's not worth it. Because
you're banned for that.
Well, I mean, it's just not good.
Yeah. That sounds like a bannable thing to me. I don't know.
Like, well, I mean,
potentially, yeah.
We'll talk about things that can get you disqualified, but
or not unless you win a game.
I also had really close games in Modern where I just felt like I was talking to Dave afterwards, who's a very, very good player, and after I like when you talk about pros, David Ochoa is my David chose my pro like Duke Morgan's pro.
It's true.
I really enjoy what the guy does and how he plays. And honestly, in his article, he said all the matchups were like pretty much all the matchups were close with a slight positive to the winning matchups. And I just honestly think that I'm just not good enough with the deck to win these close matchups. And I just don't know Modern as well as he does.
That's true.
So I feel like I think I stumbled it. Like I tested the deck list for a while, but again, we've talked about how Cockatrice is good testing, so I should stop doing that.
Yeah, we need to get on Moto.
But it was I don't know, it was disconcerting. I lost a lot of really close matches to some pretty frustrating top decks, and that's going to happen. But that's the difference between running well and running poorly in the first place. Is, when you're running well, the right card is on top of your deck. When you're running poorly, you draw a Razor Verge ticket as your 6th land over and over and over again.
Is that your layer of hell? Like you die, go to hell. You draw that exact same.
I can tell you how many times I did it. It was just like, I like by the end of the day, I was playing against a burn opponent the last round who did not know that I only have one black source. So it was really awkward. So like I'm alive and I should not have been because of Death Ray Shamans. And like I'm just like, well, if I draw like a fetch land here, I can actually still win the game. And it was just like, I'm going to draw a Razor Verge ticket. I know I am. Oh look, Razor Verge ticket. It's like take it out of the sleeve, rip it in half. You know what I mean? Just be done with it.
Would there have been anything else that you would like to have played instead of the junk list?
Yeah, I wish I would have not been a freaking whiner and been scaredy cat. And like I honestly was afraid of like playing a real deck when there was money on the line. And it turned out that the standard I was right about how good I was able to do it standard, that I could have done it anyways, but I should have played the devotion list just to try it out. Going forward, I think I'm going to keep testing that deck. I don't know when I'll play Modern again. I had good results with Twin when I played it as well. Like I don't know if I think I need to stick to, if I don't know a deck that well, I still need to stick to blue decks, because the more cards I can draw in matchups that I don't know that well, the better it is for me overall.
Sure.
So that was me, and got to watch Dave crush most of day 2, and then have like one of the most ridiculous things happen.
Yeah. So we actually, this was pretty interesting. This is the last round of Swiss, and this was Dave actually got a feature match. It was actually on camera. So Jordan and I watched it on stream. Mike was there,
right?
And he was playing against someone playing a pretty interesting deck in Modern. He was basically playing Goggo or Cawblade, as it were, with some interesting choices, but it was an Esper list. And it was very difficult. Apparently, Squadron Hawk is pretty good against most of Affinity.
Especially when you have one in every game too. That was,
yeah.
So the crazy thing about Squadron Hawk is once you have one,
you have 4.
So that I felt like that kind of won the game in game 1. Him having just being able to get that blocker definitely helped. But it was close, and there were plenty of it was definitely close for game 1. Shift into game 2, and I'm watching the stream. Mike's watching it live, and in commentary, they're looking at the Dave's opponent's hand. And they're like, it looks like he has a Hercules recall. It's Frank Lepore and Caleb Durward that are commentating. And Caleb goes, I don't see that in his sideboard. Like, I don't see that card.
They have the list in front of them.
Yes, they have the list in front of them. He's like, I don't see that. Can't be Hercules recall. I don't see that in the. He
didn't reg it.
Excuse me, Dave's opponent's registration. But it was confirmed that was the card that was in there, and they Caleb Durward goes over, alerts the judging staff to this, and then that kind of that's where we see it. That's where Jordan and I see it on our end. So what kind of happened on your end from kind of from that?
So, wait, hold on. Before you say that, Hercules recall, for people that don't know, bounces all artifacts to their owner's hand.
Blue and colorless instant, return all artifacts to their owner's
hand. So it is a hoser for Dave's deck, essentially, and that's why this is so interesting.
Yeah, Dave was on Affinity. I don't know if we actually said that.
It is the hoser for Dave's deck in Modern. I know you might not be a Modern player, so that's kind of the thing. It's a really key card in the matchup.
Correct.
But
so I'm standing there and then like watching. So they cast the Hercules recall, and Dave's hilarious to watch. Like if you ever watch him like play, you didn't see him on camera, his face, like for the most part, stays the same, but his eyes tell you everything. And he was just so exasperated by this match so far, because game 1 was like a 30-minute match.
Yeah, it was very long.
Because he gained a bunch of life, and then his opponent slowly beat him down with a creeping tar pit and a sword of fire and ice. But
it was heartbreaking.
It was just so miserable to watch. You're just like Eddie. He has his opponent was at a very low life total. He
was
at
1.
He
It
was
was
at
1.
1 near the end of the game.
Yeah.
He was at 1. So Dave plays 2 Galvanic Blasts in main deck in his list, and you're just like, just be a fucking
Draw
Galvanic
fucking
Blast.
blast. Yeah,
Just do
never
it.
does.
Just do it, and he doesn't, and it's heartbreaking.
So game 2, he goes up for this attack, and like he gets Hercules recalled. Again, you can see him just go. You know what I mean? Like scooping his cards up, and then the judge comes over and like stops the game all of a sudden, and I'm like, oh wait, what's this? And they're like, hey, we need to talk to you about this, and I overhear the judge saying like this card is in his list, blah blah blah. So they pull him aside, and Dave keeps it pretty straight. He just like starts shuffling his deck for game 3. You know?
That was the best on the stream. You see, like, because we hear the commentators say this, right? And we hear, like, oh, they're going to go. You hear, Lauren put his headset down. You hear the clatter because TCG doesn't have production value. And they put the headset on the desk. And then you see Dave look over. And then he just puts his hand down. And a couple seconds later, he looks up. He goes, oh.
starts sideboarding for game 3. So his opponent got pulled aside. Eventually, it was ruled that he was allowed. He did. We talked to the judge after the match, so I'll just say what happened during the match.
Yeah.
It was ruled that the way it works is whatever the sideboard list you have with you is the sideboard list you keep for a deck reg error. Now, obviously, this is a little bit more than just a deck reg error because Affinity was all over the place at the 50K.
Correct. It was
Like,
a huge part of the metagame.
You could have just walked around the tables day 1 and been like, man, these Hercules recalls would be sweet day 2. And that's why it goes from just a deck reg error to, you're a dirty cheater error. I'm not saying that guy is. I'm just saying that's where the spectrum goes.
Right.
So he comes back. They shuffle up for game 3. He's allowed to keep the recalls. And then, they get a bunch of time extension, whatever, but they end up drawing it out. The guy just drew a stringer removal. And again, Dave's eyes just like, oh, yeah, this one too. Cool. So they draw, and we stuck around a little bit later, Dave and I did, to talk to the head judge. And the head judge essentially told us that they checked a number of things. I'm sharing this with you because, if this happens to you, you should, because I asked Dave, I asked him if he thought about appealing the ruling of a game loss as opposed to a match loss. And he said, Dave's not the kind of guy to try and get wins that way anyways. Me, I'm appealing at least for an explanation from the judge.
Right.
And that's just me because, like, that felt dirty. And nothing against the guy. Is we're not throwing his name out there for a reason. You know what I mean? But we talked to the judge afterwards, and he said that the first thing to do is ask opponents from earlier opponents if they saw the card.
Right.
And the opponents confirmed they had seen the cards. But as I asked the head judge there, I was like, well, the opponents who would have seen Hercules Recall were Affinity opponents, correct? And he's like, well, yes. And I'm like, how does that help anyway?
He was cheating more than just Dave. Like,
so,
oh yeah, I got cheated too.
well, he said he wanted to make sure that first off, it wasn't just like, you heard that Dave, he's, I'm playing Dave, that guy's on Affinity. Hold on a second. And Dave even said that this player had requested to be on camera because his deck was sort of unique.
Yeah.
So you generally wouldn't cheat when you're like, hey, I'm going to cheat on camera for the fun.
Yeah.
Irony, by the way, the guy I sat next to last round, Alex Bertensini.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his first I asked him. He said it was his first paper event. So this was kind of funny as we're talking.
Not in a while, right?
Yeah, he was very jovial. I think hopefully he'll be all good. Anyways, I just thought it was sort of a random non sequitur. And the judge also said that the way they were able to quote unquote confirm it wasn't cheating is that the vendor that he bought them from. He had two. I think it was Chronicles, Hercules Recalls. They were whiteboarded with the legend symbol on it. Chronicles. There were vendors, and Hercules Recall was not a card that a lot of the vendors had on them, and so this particular vendor remembered having those two those two whiteboarded Hercules Recalls, and they remembered selling it to him. They vouched that they sold it to him Saturday morning, not Sunday, not before that match. Okay, and the judge took that as reason enough to say that it was a deck reg error. Okay, and he said his deck sheet also had a bunch of other scribbles on it, like he had registered something and scribbled it out and then changed the register before he handed the deck list in. So you could tell that there was like a thought process for the cards anyways, and you could conceivably see that he just forgot. It was like Kitchen Finks that he wasn't running anymore. Big difference between Kitchen Finks and Hercules Recall. Now, my thought on it is whether or not you can prove all this stuff. If I do that, if that's me, you know what I mean, in that kind of a matchup, and I get a DQ, I'm not crying about it. I'd be upset at myself more than anything else. And the fact that he only got a game loss, to me, was surprising. And there were a number of people watching the event live who were saying things very loudly like, well, I guess I should just cheat next time. I know that's okay to do, blah, blah, blah. And, honestly, they had valid points. As long as you can, well, this guy vouched for me. And a number of the, and I was saying this to you guys before we started here, a number of the vendors were sponsoring players in the event. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like Star City, if it was a Star City event, and a Star City writer, you know what I mean, has something like this happen, of course the Star City vendor is going to vouch for them. You know what I mean? So you see where there could be like
Pastimes had players in the event, right?
I don't think it was Pastimes.
No. I'm not saying that. Like the more giving credence to what you said,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, but they, so you could have just been like, hey, if this happens, just vouch for me. Yeah, sure, no problem. Again, this may be a small thing. I even said like, what if the person had not vouched for him, and they said, well, then it gets tricky, and they'd have to go in and investigate more. And I'm assuming at that point it's a match loss. It felt bad to me. So obviously it could have just all been circumstantial, and it seems like it was, and it's upsetting for that. That it went down that way, and they ended up drawing, and they both drew into top 16 anyways. Once the match was a draw,
right?
But it was just, I don't know. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen on camera.
It's definitely weird to see on camera because it's weird to think about because this would have been something like if this match had not been on camera. Like, this would have never happened. Like,
that's the thing. And I will say that's the only thing I'm going to give credit to the coverage for.
Is pointing this out.
Pointing this out.
Being on day 2 and like, listening to coverage, like, nothing against Frank Lepore or Caleb Durward.
It was terrible.
It was
awful.
Not ideal. And
I like Frank Lepore. He is very pleasant.
Yeah.
I would just rather at your instep grab a mic and get in the booth. Like
us. Interesting. I'd rather just us do it.
Well, of course.
I mean, why not? But no, I both Caleb Durward and Frank Lepore both do videos. I enjoy watching and listening to the videos.
Caleb Durward's very knowledgeable about the game.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is half the stream was them talking about the food they hadn't received.
It's just like
right.
It wasn't very representative of good coverage, and like I think sometimes we do get spoiled because there are some people that want more from coverage. But I mean, when you compare this to things like Star City and even things like Magic coverage, that blew them out of the water, and it's very unfortunate. Because this is a premier event for TCG.
This is their only.
This is their big event. Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about coverage a lot on this podcast. Like I said before, I come from an esports background where production value is dollars. Like MLG, for example, their players aren't as good as some of like WCS or like some Korea things, but their production value is insane. They're a multi-million-dollar company just in production values alone. And then you go to Magic coverage, and the guys over there at TCG Player are using a normal webcam that's shopping at 25 frames per second. Like, I'm watching... It was a webcam.
Their mic stand was 2 totes stacked up on top of each other with a piece of paper that said, do not touch.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at this, and I'm like... As I walked into the venue hall, I see where all their production stuff is set up, and I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. And I go, I have that webcam. Like, that's the webcam I use to record the videos on AtYourEndStep.com. And... I was just so underwhelmed, and day 1, they're still setting up the production equipment to stream the match, and there's duct taped cameras at the top of a pole that they just probably bought at Best Buy, because you could see the boxes that the stuff came out of thrown in the corner, and you're like, that was awful.
The venue, they picked a poor venue, and I'm sure they went to the Veterans Memorial because it was cheaper, but man, it was not good.
Oh yeah, so for people that don't know, the Veterans Memorial and the Greater Columbus Convention Center are the 2 pseudo-competing convention centers. They're tearing the one we were in this weekend down. The Franklin County is no, it's god awful. It's tanked. The veterans smell bad. It smells bad inside. The whole kit.
Wait! Don't say the veterans smell bad.
AtYourEndStep would like to apologize to all old veterans.
I think we apologized to veterans last week too.
Did we? Oh man. Sorry.
Well, we're still fucking up. I'm sorry.
We're still sorry about it. But yeah, so. Usually everything we talk about, Star Cities, are held at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. Greater being an actual appropriate adjective in this comparison.
Mainly because it's across the street from Barley's.
No, mainly because it's just better.
It's just a better convention center. It's more up to date. The Veterans Center is a concrete building. It's just concrete. It's a concrete room, and that's all it is.
You're basically in a cinder block.
Yeah, and it was cheaper, and it fit their needs. Based on the amount of turnout they had this weekend, they probably barely made enough money to pay for that.
With a free event, it's a free event in the first place.
That's true.
But I understood that they were trying to make it smaller than last year. I get that. Star City's Invitational was just north of 400. They're trying to make this their premier, hard to get into event. Honestly, they should stop using points then. If that's
that's true.
Stop making me trade in.
Yeah. Don't. Well, I mean, Star City uses points, but they're not physical cards.
It's I can lose my entry fee.
Yeah.
I can lose it. Like, oops, I don't know where I put it.
Right.
Right. Well, that's actually a really good point. Like, you could just your entry to TCG could go up in a fire.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to go more on the point. It didn't feel like an invitational to me.
No.
The way you describe the SCG Invitational, the way you watch the coverage of the SCG Invitational, you feel like it is their marquee event. All roads lead to this one. You know, where with this TCG thing, like I sat down at this tournament hall and I felt like it was like a shoddy diamond event.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was not good. The commentary when you saw it when you heard it was not good. The setup for the cameras were like day 2. I don't know if you guys said you were watching on camera.
Mm-hmm.
There was some they set up right next to this giant window. The sun came out. You couldn't see the cards, and the commentators were like, "Well, the glare is making us not able to see the cards." How is that an issue?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, how is that even, and the other thing is how close the commentators were to the actual, like, day 2, early in the morning.
You could hear them from the table.
Yeah, day 2 early, they were literally only like 30 feet from each other, maybe, if that. And early in the morning before the 5K started, you literally only had 64 people in the room. So, you could, they're like, you gotta talk like this so they don't hear, like, oh man, look what he just drew. You know what I mean?
Right,
like, you
right.
can't say that.
Right.
Boom goes the die. Oh, I'm sorry.
Star Cities, they now granted, I mean, they have better equipment, but you can't give that as a reason, as a cop-out. If you say you're going to do video for an event, then do good video for an event. Like, I don't...
Right.
I don't know. It was super weird because we had a TCG Player 5K here in Columbus.
And more people.
Yeah,
In a better venue.
It had a better video.
I'm
It's
stealing
going to
your-
have more
I'm sorry,
people. It's
I'm
going to have
sorry,
more people just because you can pay.
Sure.
Money to get
I'm
in.
sorry, I'm stealing your quote.
No, it's fine.
Go ahead.
But I mean, like, it felt like it had higher quality overall than their premier marquee event.
And it was held by Pez.
Yeah.
And it was better. That shouldn't be right.
But I mean, like, it's unfortunate that they didn't get someone like, I know Griffin Events is a very good, Comic Town, our local shop, does a lot of work with them for their PTQs.
Yeah,
right.
And they're, Stephen Briggs is the kind of the front runner, the runner of that. Or most of the time he's the head judge for those events, stuff like that. So I don't know how much involvement he has or to say. But Griffin Events, we've never had an issue with them, and they run really good events.
Yeah.
So it was very unfortunate to see that they just that they chose not to work with them. But I know they frequently work with Pez in most of their Midwest sort of events anyway.
I'm very confused about, and it relates like, so why aren't they working with Griffin Events? Why are they working with Pastimes? Why aren't they working with Pez, who, despite my things, put on very good tournaments? Well, like Star City puts on their own event.
Yeah.
It's Star City. It's not Star City presented by Pastime. It's Star City Games presenting the Star City Games Invitational. Right. And that's something that really bothered me about those two. There's just all this Pastime stuff all over the place. I'm like, what is this? Like, this is the Pastimes event that happens to be a TCG thing where I have 2 buys. Like, I was really underimpressed by that. And they're going to say, well, we don't have the funding that Star City does. Well, then get the funding. Like,
run better events.
Play better. You know, like Mike's comment to me after I was bummed out. We'll just play better. Like, oh, okay, thanks, buddy. But yeah, so the same thing can be said to the TCG Player. Play better. Like, based on this, I am not going to play next year. If it's they say it's in the Northeast. Boston would be a fun trip to take. Not for this. You know, like they're rolling out one thing I said that they are doing well is they are rolling out a way to spend your TCG points. If you're not going to go to the Invitational next year, you can buy like swag and stuff like that with it. And I kind of like that. Like I would buy a jacket or something with like 100 points. You know, that'd be kind of neat. But
honestly, the jacket would probably be better than going to the Invitational.
No, yeah, based on this weekend,
championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
You probably get more use out of it.
No, yeah. Or like one of our friends who sold all of his points to the play goes, well, I can make money off of this event or I can lose all my points. So, like, there's...
You live, you learn.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back.
I'm not. The way that this event was presented, it's not something that I am necessarily looking to attend or work towards attending in the future. Yeah. It's just... it is not something that I necessarily... The production value on it was necessarily good, and I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, you shouldn't really give a shit about like how the tournaments run or anything like that. We didn't get actively cheated.
Okay, I'm sorry. They set up giant 32-inch TVs for the pairings board so they could scroll it, and they were taping the paper pairings to
2 TVs
because they couldn't get it to work. And they were just like, look at that 3D technology.
But I mean, when it comes...
It worked twice. 2 rounds.
2 rounds. Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, it's a Magic tournament. It was local. If you were qualified, you probably should have been there. And obviously, if you were good in made correct metagame calls and things like that, and you top 64 day 2'd, you made money. So I mean, like, you can't necessarily say that about most Magic tournaments. You can't say that about GPs. You can't say that about the Star City Games Invitational.
That's
right.
fair.
That's
So,
because there's more players there in a fun, competitive environment.
Yeah.
well, so that's fair. So, Mike, like, you had a good experience at the event. You made money back. I think. I mean, let's just even take all the entry fees from all the TCG events combined. You've probably made your money back.
Oh yeah.
Even then some. So, what is your take on the event? Do you share a similar take? I mean, because you obviously have a more positive outlook for the
No, I
money.
mean, I'm glad they do it. It's cool that, anything that competes with Star City is inherently a good thing, because then, like, we talk about, like, Star City, like, we're going to keep with Legacy. Well, if something else isn't pushing Modern and gets people to go play Modern, then Star City has no reason to ever have a Modern event. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
but it's kind of weird when half the people playing Modern are playing one deck, and you're just like, oh, this is why you don't. Maybe this is why you don't do it.
Well, I mean, it just, I don't know. TCG Player, I think TCG Player is more focused on, like, gimmicky stuff. Like, they want to give titles to everything and everybody. You know what I mean? We're just the 3 different states.
Yeah, yes,
okay,
that was what I was going to say.
So
like,
that's something that they kind of put the full focus is now they're going to be holding 3 different states tournaments at different times during the year.
well, here's the thing. Their logic for that was priceless. It was, well, we know there's a lot of confusion about who's state champion, and various organizations referencing Star City. Various organizations are calling themselves state championship holders now. So what we're going to do is just to eliminate the confusion, have 3 of you in 1 calendar year. In limited, standard, and modern. So I'm state champion. No shit, me too. Like, what? And then the 3rd guy comes over and is like, whoa, I'm state champ.
You have to, you actually, awkward. You do have to get a face tattoo if you, to prove that you are, one of the state champions.
Yeah. It's really awkward if you actually win all 3. It's a full face.
It's a new face.
But it does make one solid logo though. They did do that right, so it's kind of cool.
I think like the NFL has the cool like gloves where they put their hands.
Yeah.
That's what your face looks like.
Yeah,
pretty
it's
much.
the TCG logo with the 3 cards. So like if you win the limited one, it goes on your left cheek. The standard one goes on your right, and then the modern one covers like your Mike Tyson part of your face.
And when they
the front of it.
combined, it's actually just Frank Laporte's face.
It's really neat. So go to 3 state championships. I hope you do.
I mean, you could actually. Star City has them, so you can go to like what 4 or 5.
4. Yeah, because Star City's having a fall to spring. I want Star City to roll out the standard modern extended like.
And as awkward as this may be, I did want to take this time. We as a podcast want to take this time to announce our stage. It's actually
The
held,
AtYourEndStep
it's
tournament
held
series
in the park near my apartment, and the winner
Gets
gets barbecued ribs.
Well, it's funny because I was playing Saturday Standard at Comic Town, our team shop, and Ryan comes up and goes, "Well, with all this announcement of us." With all this announcement of everybody running states, Star Cities running states, I'd like to take this time to announce that you guys are playing in the first official qualifier for the Franklin County Super Series. Who is the baddest of them all in Franklin County? And look, so I won that event. He writes me up this little sleeve of paper. It's like, here's your certificate to the Franklin County Super Series. Congratulations, you are well on your way to being Franklin County champion.
I actually want. Okay, we need to talk to him about this. I actually want the team shirts to be changed to Greater Franklin County area state champ or county champs.
I mean, sure, why not? We could just give out titles, right? We could just create our own if we don't have any. But I mean, it's kind of funny because we're sitting here like we aren't complaining. Like a Magic tournament's a Magic tournament, and it's great that there's a bunch of them that we can play in if we want to. But it's just kind of ludicrous at this point in time when you have all these state championships. Like they don't mean anything. So I don't know. Like. It's just, that's what it is. It's hilarity. Like, we're not complaining that, there's all these Magic tournaments. We're complaining because they don't mean anything.
Yeah.
They've lost their relevance. There used to be one state championship, and it happened every year. And that was something.
And there was a national event that you could feed into. And
right,
do
correct.
This. And
now it doesn't mean anything.
And, they're trying to fill the void that when Wizards has kind of pulled back and gone to mostly GPs, they're trying to fill the void. Anybody that does anything, events like this, Mythic around here has been trying, Mythic MTG or whatever, has been trying to do their own 5K event. I don't think that's going to go over very well. Their qualifiers have kind of disappeared a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're trying. And I think, TCG Player, is an established company that needs to do this better. But I would hate for them to not exist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Ask that question. Like,
100%.
should continue to exist. They need to get the system down better. They're doing as much as we laugh about the points. They do their own token system. It is them. It's TCG. Brand awareness is a good thing.
Yeah.
I just hope that
I am impressed with that.
no one who works at TCG is going to listen to this.
Well, we don't know that. I'm just saying, we don't know that.
We did have the one guy who awkwardly gave our card to Melissa Del Toro.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, that guy's awesome.
By the way, I was sitting next to Melissa Del Toro during that round, just so you know. So that made it awkward.
No.
Oh, it's really. Oh yeah. By the way, I'm on the
Actually,
show.
Melissa Del Toro is really, really nice.
True.
And Dave Nolan does know her. It was really funny. They were sitting there, and I had asked her and Adrian Sullivan a question while we were sort of like playtesting games. And Dave was playtesting, but he had his headphones in and his hoodie up. So I was like, oh, you know Dave over here, you guys are from the Boston area. She's like, oh yeah, this and that, and Andrew Morrow just goes, you know the Dave Nolan, and of course Dave didn't hear it, so we look over at Dave, and he doesn't turn he just looks like the total douche. So the Dave Nolan, yeah, that's me.
Oh, poor Dave.
It was actually the best. But it was. They got to continue to do it. I just hope that if it's not our criticism, I know there's more than just us criticizing this.
Oh yeah.
Just the way they posted deck list was just garbage. Star City does XO or X1 and better decks. Mm-hmm. Why not give those? Why not give that variation? Instead, they just jammed all the modern and standard top 16 lists into a thing and said that's it. Their coverage on their website, like there's no written articles. There's nothing.
No,
it's all trash.
I tried to find Dave's. I can't even find the prize payout because I tried to figure out how much Dave got paid. I couldn't find the prize payout in an accessible manner.
It's
like,
so trash.
I had to use the time machine for website to find it. Like it was there Friday, so we'll just go back to Friday. Yeah, and like you even showed me the deck list before the thing, and I was like, well, why aren't Dave's together?
They're not even next to each other.
Dave Nolan, 5 other guys, then Dave Nolan. I don't understand. No, like for me, I won't watch events unless the production's there. I don't care how good. Just like podcasts,
see, the thing is, I would disagree with you that though, because if it's players you care about playing decks you're interested in, you probably would sit through it.
See, I don't know. Like a lot of the time with StarCraft events, they would get these high-profile players to play in these good events that paid good cash prizes, and the commentary is terrible. And you're like, oh, mute that, drag that to the side, and we're just
fair enough.
Like with podcasts, if Reed Duke is on a podcast with a guy who's like, well, Reed, I like your hair. Like Morgan, I'm probably not going to listen. I'm going to turn it off in 2 seconds. And but honestly, if the production value is not there, our earlier episodes, the production value wasn't as sound as it is now. I struggled to listen to some of those episodes, and it's getting a little bit better with the local recording and stuff like that.
I ended the podcast, and I still don't listen to the episodes.
Yeah, no, I won't watch a TCG thing. Would I play in one if it all got better, if I could qualify and not lose my points, and it were ran by TCG Player?
Wait, you mean like you did this last weekend and failed?
Jesus.
This
guy. Well, I'm back to my top day 2 invitations.
Well, no, you're just you're like, hypothetically, if I could do all the things I've already done, but...
That's not
if I could do all the
I would
things...
jump off a bridge, Mike Kenny.
If I could do all the things I did better, then it'd be fine.
I could pay someone to jump off a bridge for me.
Man, if I could beat Morgan McCarl in 10 turns instead of 11... Yeah, don't make fun of me, jackass. I won a game of Standard.
That's true, he did. I didn't. It's alright. It's okay.
You know what?
I won more than one, by the way.
You know what felt really good earlier? That high five of Reed Morgan. Want to do it again?
Yep.
All right. I'm gonna edit all this bullshit out of this podcast.
All right, so
I mean that's pretty much everything that we really had to say about our weekend and about all the standard events that happened. Again, thank you guys for listening so much. Obviously, you take a look at our website. It's just AtYourEndStep.com. All of our Twitter stuff is on there. Please follow us on Twitter. Send us feedback. We definitely love hearing from anyone that does listen to the podcast. I wouldn't call you fans because I don't know how much you like us. You probably just listen to us out of pity, and we appreciate it either way. We're not
a three-legged dog.
We're not too prideful. We'll take what we can
get. It can't really run, but man, it tries.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. If that's what we are, if we're your charity case, we'll take it. That's all we're saying. But
speaking of charity, give me 4 Carn Liberated.
Don't do that. Don't.
Yeah, we are looking. We talk about it tonight. We're going to try and we're going to create a podcast moto account so that we can, so that you don't have 80 more videos of Jordan playing cockatrice.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to try to give you guys some more content. and lay bring some video into this audio only format. Do some drafts, do some standard events, hopefully. Maybe do potentially some modern, and then we'll see where this goes. Hopefully, we'll have that in the coming weeks. Once all the things kind of come together, and so please bookmark our website. It's definitely going to get more full than it is right now. But just kind of wrap it up. We always appreciate you guys listening, and have a great one.